Alright, the bane of my existence today is natural light, and as such, the lighting's gonna be, because the sun keeps breaking through the clouds and it doesn't, and the clouds are moving so fast. Anyways, so today we're going to talk about some National Football League power rankings, and there's not a whole lot of change. There really isn't. There's a lot of teams that are in the same spot they were last week because the results came through, and I'm like, okay, so what I've got on the board, I've got the results from this week, and I've got next week. Next week, only Baltimore and Dallas have the week off, so only two teams with a bye. That means we got 15 games on this week in football. First up, number 32 overall, act surprised. Act surprised when Miami goes up as number 32. Can we all act like, wow, Miami's the worst, huh? Yeah, this week they lost in Buffalo, but it was 31-21. There's the sun, the bane of my existence again. It'll go away. Don't worry about it. It's October. There it goes. So, Miami loses 31-21 in Buffalo, which people can look at that result and go, well, see, that shows that Buffalo's not that great. The problem is Buffalo still won the game, so I'm not going to penalize Buffalo on the board. Miami this week, I wrote all these down. They're in Pittsburgh. Miami and Pittsburgh is your Monday Night Football game this week. I anticipate great ratings for that. Number 31, and I had to wear my Bengals gear for this. We're not as bad as Miami. 0-7. Cincinnati this week, they lost at home against Jacksonville 27-17 because of course they did. And now this week they're in against the Rams in LA. So I'm sure that'll go really, really well for Cincinnati because things go well. See, I cheer for the Bengals, and this year I had nothing to cheer for with the Bengals. Number 30. These guys are 1-6. They lost at home in a shutout 9-0. Those games in the mud, eh? So I lose 9-0. It's an ugly game, and you're just glad that both teams get out of it. So Washington this week, they're in Minnesota. I don't anticipate things getting much better for Washington, but they're there at number 30, and as they should have plastered all over their stadium, we're better than the Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. So there you go. Number 29, these guys are 1-6. I can't put them any higher. I just can't. And the funny thing with Atlanta is, so let's see, where's their result from this week? Atlanta, they're not up there. So Atlanta this coming week, they have a game at home against Seattle. Oh, they lost to the Rams 37-10. I was blinded by how horrible that score was. 37-10 against the Rams. Now they've got the Seattle Seahawks coming in, so I anticipate another great one. Although, in the battle of the birds between they and the Seahawks, that could be interesting because the Seahawks had a bit of a down game at home, and they're going to be trying to stem the tide of that because let's just say the Seahawks lose this week and the Rams win, and the Rams are playing against Cincinnati, so they're going to win. Spoiler alert. All of a sudden, both teams are 5-3. So for Atlanta, they can play spoiler. That's their role now. They can be spoilers. They could have been a spoiler to the Rams, but 37-10 says no. Number 28, these guys are 1-5. They got shut out last night by the New England Patriots. I'm already kind of chuckling about where things are going to end up here when it comes to this power rankings. The Jets, this week now, they get to go to Jacksonville. So that's a game that they should lose. They might be able to keep it close, but again, the Jets are just a disaster on that field. Number 27, these guys are 2-5. Prove that I can't have nice things being a fan of the Bengals and being a fan of the Chargers. They lost 23-20 to Tennessee. And this week, the Chargers move on to Chicago, where I anticipate they'll drop to 2-6. What happened? Before the season started, we were looking at last season and going, hey, San Diego, they should be about 9-7, maybe 10-6. Yeah, they might be a contender. We might see Phillip Rivers win a championship before he dies. And now we're going, if Phillip Rivers wants to win a championship, he ain't going to get it playing for the LA Chargers. And if I say San Diego, I apologize. It's 30 years of saying San Diego. They're the LA Chargers, and this is what you get. Should have moved to Vegas. Number 26, these guys are 2-5. They lost to Arizona 27-21. Now they're moving on to Detroit. The Giants. Remember when things were looking up for the Giants? I remember. That's gone now. So, 2-5. Pretty much that's it. The good news for the Giants is that division looks pretty wide open. So if they could get, say, a 3-game winning streak going, I know. I'm well aware. Number 25, these guys had a bye this week. Now next week they're in New England. So if you want to have a laugh, now the New England Patriots are playing Cleveland. Yeah. So people are mad about New England's schedule. It's not going to be, they're not going to be any happier this week. And for Cleveland, it's like, oh goody. Now we're going to be 2-5. If Cleveland could unseat the undefeated New England Patriots, they've got a shot. But again, and it really, in all honesty, that division is kind of wide open as well. That being said, Baltimore looks like they're ready to close that up. Number 24, these guys are 3-1. They beat the Giants. Now they're going to New Orleans. So for the Cardinals, if they can go into New Orleans and beat the Saints, yes, the Cardinals could very well prove for me and others wrong who have them down this lower in the power rankings. That being said, they beating the Giants, I couldn't really move them up very much based on beating the Giants. Number 23, these guys are 3-4. They won at home against the Chargers this week. Now they're at home against Tampa Bay, and that's Tennessee. So if Tennessee wants to make some hay, this is a good time to do it at home against Tampa Bay, a team that really should be better than what the record shows. And Tennessee, probably a team that should be better than their record shows too. So they're number 23 on here. Number 22, these guys are 2-5. They got destroyed this week, 30-6 by the Kansas City Chiefs. And now this coming week, they are in Indianapolis. So if the 2-5 Broncos are having any hopes or dreams of getting to 500 on the season, start this week. They lose this week, they drop to 2-6, and it's pretty much the end of that. But going to Indianapolis and winning there is going to be a tough task for them. Number 21, these guys won. Nope, they lost. No, they won. They won because they were in Cincinnati, so of course they won. Everybody wins in Cincinnati against these guys. 27-17. And this coming week, they're home against the Jets. That sounds like a win for Jacksonville. Sounds like they can go to 4-4 and make themselves more relevant. So, Jacksonville's one of those teams that they are in that, and I refer to this when I do the hockey power rankings too, the mushy middle, where, on any given day, they can look pretty darn good. They can look like they might be a playoff team. And then on any given day as well, they can look pretty bad. So we'll see where Jacksonville ends up with things this week. Number 20, these guys are 2-4. They've got the Monday night game at home against Miami. The Steelers are going to win that. Spoiler alert. Sorry, I'm giving away what's going to happen this week in football. That both this team and this team are going to lose. So, I can't jinx them. So if anybody's like, oh, he's trying to jinx the Steelers, I can't jinx anybody. And I don't mind the Steelers. Even though I'm a Bengals fan, I don't really mind. I know I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to hate the Steelers, but I don't. They're going to win this week and go to 3-4. There's still a chance. There's still a chance that Pittsburgh can pull this out. Pittsburgh's one of those teams that they've done this kind of magic before. Number 19, these guys are 2-4. And this week they're in Tennessee. And again, I like Tampa Bay in general. I think they're better than the record. But at some point, being better than your record doesn't matter because it's your record that gets you into the playoffs or not. So for Tampa Bay, there's some work they have to do. Number 18, these guys dropped to 3-3 by losing 42-24 in Green Bay. There is no shame in losing in Green Bay. This week they're in Houston. It's a rough trip. Going from Green Bay to Houston. And Houston's going to be probably a pretty ornery team this week. So If Oakland's going to keep themselves relevant, they have to win this week. If they don't, well, the math for how they would make it into the playoffs gets a little more difficult. And yet we're only 6 games into the season for them, and it'll be 7 after that one. So if they can get a win over Houston, yeah, Oakland proves something to me. But again, they've been really inconsistent from week to week. Number 17, these guys are 2-3-1. And I'm, you know what? I'm on their side. They lose against against Minnesota, 42-30. Nobody loses against Miami. And then this week, they're at home against the Giants. So Detroit should go to 3-3-1. But again, 3-3-1, you've got a 500 record, and overall, you're just around the middle of the pack. So that, to me, says that where I have Detroit is about right. They're middle of the pack. And we'll see whether or not they're able to break out of that, and if Stafford can put up some points, and we can see some kind of upward movement for Detroit. I'd like to see them in the playoffs because it hasn't happened in a while, I think. And I'm trying to think of how long. I know it's been a while, as far as I can remember anyways. But anyways, yeah, Detroit 17. Number 16, these guys fell to 3-4. And they did so by losing 37-10 against Dallas. Really, really big drop for them in that one. And now this week, they are in Buffalo. Philadelphia, I didn't anticipate them being this low. I remember the first week I had Philadelphia up in here and I said I thought they would drop. I did not mean down to 16. I did not mean that I thought they'd be below 500 through the first 7 games of the season. Oh, there's the bane of my existence again, the sun. Don't worry, it'll go out again. And it's going out already. Yeah, so Philly, 3-4. Pretty rough start to the season for them. Number 15 is the team that beat them. Because I don't trust them right now. They have the week off. Dallas. At least they won going into the bye week, right? So at least they did that. But Dallas has been so all over the place that I'm not pushing them any higher than 15th. I'm like, okay, so they beat the Eagles. I'll put the Eagles down here. I'll put Dallas there. And then next week we can see where Dallas is at, because I don't know. They can lose to a pretty bad team, and then they can beat an Eagles team that, depending on who you ask, should be a playoff team, could have been a playoff team, might have been a playoff team. It's really kind of all over the place. Number 14. And these guys are coming off of a win at home against Houston. This coming week, they're at home against Denver. They're 4-2, and that's Indianapolis. So Indianapolis, again, continues to be relevant without Andrew Luck. So Luck's retirement has not negatively impacted their overall result, and they are definitely one of the teams that could end up winning that division. The division's kind of theirs to lose when you look at it. When you look at the standings, number 13, these guys are 4-3, coming off of that win that they really desperately needed. We didn't expect a desperately needed win in Week 7, but we got it. They won over the Atlanta Falcons experience down here, and now they are at home against Cincinnati, so they're going to go to 5-3, and that's the Rams. Winning over Cincinnati won't tell us anything. Losing to Cincinnati, that would tell us a lot. So for the Rams, this is an important week. For the Bengals, their season's over, but hey, they can play spoiler. Can be spoilers, guys. Can do it. It's not going to happen. Number 12, coming off of, they had the bye week this week, right? Yeah. Now they're in San Francisco. They're 4-2. If Carolina can pull off a win over San Francisco in San Francisco, we very likely have a playoff team in the Carolina Panthers. And that's something that we would not have expected after the first couple weeks of the season. That team looked kind of lost. Now, not so much. So yeah, I have them at 12, and we'll see where they end up should they beat the San Francisco 49ers. Number 11, these guys are coming off of a loss against Indianapolis, and now this week they are at home against Oakland. They're 4-3, and that's the Texans. And I saw people saying I had the Texans too low last week, and here's the thing. Now they're 4-3. There are certain teams that I'm going, you know what, they're winning really well, they're doing very well, and then there's teams that are that inconsistency still is there. I don't look at any one game and say, okay, that proves that this team is really bad. For instance, the destruction of the Eagles by the Cowboys doesn't tell me they belong down here. Just tells me they belong right behind the Cowboys. Texans lose. I don't overreact. I drop them 2 spots, just like I didn't overreact to the win and bump them up into the top row. There are reactionary power rankings. It seems like that's even bigger in football than it is in any other sport. Okay, that one win, and now they're huge. These guys are big. Oh, these guys lost? Oh, they're garbage now, and I'm not going to do that. I find that football power rankings are a lot easier than hockey, because hockey you're getting 3 or 4 games a week for most teams. Sometimes it's 2, and it's really hard to measure. And here, it's just the one game, and you just don't overreact, and it's kind of easier to figure everything out. Number 10. Now, these guys lost this week. They lost 36-25, but it was against New Orleans. So this is the thing. They lose against New Orleans, and I went and said, you know what, I'm not gonna panic move them down. They're at home against the Chargers this week. So Chicago at 3-3 stays there. I expect a win at home against the Chargers, because I do. And so losing against New Orleans to me does not mean that Chicago suddenly belongs down in this area. It's a loss against New Orleans. New Orleans has been pretty darn good. And I'm still happy about where New Orleans has been on the board for the last few weeks. And to me, that just says, you know what? Everything's pretty much in the right spot. Number 9, these guys are 5-2. They went in and beat Seattle handedly, 30-16. Now they have a bye week. So, Baltimore will not move down this week. They could move up. I'm just making a prediction that for after this week coming up is done, we may see Baltimore move up into this row, because somebody up here likely will drop. And of course, it's possible that somebody else in this row moves up, but I'm not very likely to move Chicago up if they win at home against the Chargers, because the Chargers have a 2-5 record and haven't been very good. So again, Baltimore's pretty secure in at least being 9th next week. Very likely they end up higher. Number 8, these guys are 5-2, and they lost against Baltimore, and that was the one thing that I thought, you know, I might want to bump Seattle down, but no, I'm going to say that bumps them down to 5-2 as well. We'll see how Seattle does this week when they're in Atlanta. So if Seattle goes in and takes care of business against Atlanta and goes to 6-2, then I'll likely keep them in 8th. But if and again, that depends on teams ahead of them. But if they struggle in Atlanta, if they lose against Atlanta, I will bump them down below the Baltimore Ravens for sure. All right, moving along from Seattle. Number 7, these guys are 4-2. They beat Detroit 42-30, and now this week they're at home against Washington. So Minnesota really is in pretty safe territory and should be 6-2 coming out of this week at home against Washington. The Vikings winning games they're supposed to versus losing games they're not supposed to. The interesting thing is, you know, a couple weeks ago there was a lot of talk about Cousins and all this. They're 5-2. They're in pretty good shape to make the playoffs this year. And I have no idea what to expect when it comes to the Vikings should they make the playoffs. Number 6, these guys are 5-1. They won at home against Miami this week, and now they're at home against Philadelphia. So Buffalo, you can argue that they're playing teams with below 500 records, and it's easier, but the Eagles are going to be a good test for them. I think the Eagles, much like I argued with Tampa Bay, I think they should be better than their record. There's at least one loss we can point to there, which is because somebody dropped a ball they shouldn't have. So for Buffalo, this is a good test for them this week. We'll see if they get to 6-1 or if they drop to 5-2. Buffalo is really kind of, I don't know. I mean, they're number 6 on the board. I don't know if I see them as any kind of contender. They strike me as the kind of team that may end up going 12-4, 11-5, something crazy, and then they end up out in the first week of the playoffs. That's what it strikes me as. We'll see if that defense ends up holding up over the full season or what happens. Number 5. These guys are 5-2, and we'll see how things work out for them without Mahomes, right? This week, they are at home against Green Bay. So 5-2 Kansas City. Notice I didn't drop them just because they don't have Mahomes in the lineup. I don't do that either. I don't react to injuries and go, oh, this team's now they're losing their spot in the power rankings because they've got injury problems. No, it's not really how it works for me anyways. I know that's how it works for others. Number 4, these guys won 42-24 against Oakland. And now this week they are, it's a road game in Kansas City. They're 6-1 and it's Green Bay. So for Green Bay, it's a good test of sorts. We'll see how Kansas City does without their star quarterback, whose knee didn't look great. And we'll see what ends up happening there. Kansas City, of course, coming off that 30-6 win over Denver. They should feel pretty good going into Green Bay, but yeah, that should be a very interesting game. And Green Bay at number 4, they look pretty good. This team won this week 9-0 in the mud. And now, this coming week, they're back home against Carolina. They're 6-0, and the argument can be made that San Francisco belongs at number 1. I can't make that argument. Winning in Washington's 9-0 isn't that kind of convincing win. And again, when you're playing in those conditions, I get it. So I'm still waiting with San Francisco. And this week, with them at home against Carolina, we may very well get it. Or I could say, yep. The problem is the team that's number 1, everybody knows who's number 1. They don't lose. So until they're losing games, they don't lose. So how do you bump them down when they don't lose? Number 2, these guys are 6-1. They went in and they defeated the Chicago Bears 36-25 this week. And now this coming week, they are at home against Arizona. So that's a nice week for New Orleans. At home against Arizona. But don't take the Cardinals lightly or you're going to end up 6-2 and likely dropping below San Francisco and possibly Green Bay as well. So for New Orleans, it's a big week. Number 1, still. Look, they won 33-0 this week. Yes, it was the Jets. Now they're playing Cleveland. Yep, it's Cleveland. And there's a lot of attention paid to the fact that New England hasn't played anybody yet. But they're still 7-0. So, this is where they're showing how they're going to end up in the playoffs this year without playing anybody yet. I'm not sure what else to say about it other than they're the best until they get defeated. Unless I see something with San Francisco that says, nah, they're playing much better than New England. But New England doesn't allow points. And New England scores a ton. And even if Tom Brady was out there in a wheelchair, due to age and his body breaking down, I still get the feeling they'd be number 1. And it's a testament to the team that's been created, to Bill Belichick, his ability to coach this team no matter what he's got out there on the field. And again, you can look at it and go, well, they haven't played anybody, but they're still 7-0. There are teams on this board that have lost games that they were supposed to win, and that's kind of part of what decides who really is the best when it comes to power rankings. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.